I've heard a ton about Shadow of the Colossus. I've heard about its great music, fun boss battles against giant colossi, and so much more. I've been wanting to play this game for years, and with the recent PS4 remake, there's never been a better excuse for me to play it. I was really excited to finally get to play this game. Shadow of the Colossus is one of those artsy games that's often used in the video games art debate. It's apparently a game that's a masterpiece that truly stands the test of time, and wow. That's a lot to live up to. Well, let's get into what I thought about it. This is going to be interesting, to say the least. Legends tell of a land at the end of the world where someone can bring back the souls of the dead. However, this land is strictly forbidden. It makes sense. You shouldn't mess with bringing people back from the dead. Guess what our main protagonist decides to do? Wano makes his journey over there with his dead friend Mono. Mono was sacrificed for whatever reason they don't bother explaining. She had a cursed fate, and they leave her fate up to interpretation. Wano brings her to this weird temple in the middle of the Forbidden Lands. There, he meets a haunting voice in the ceiling. Yeah, let's make a deal with a talking ceiling of the Forbidden Lands. That sounds like a great idea. The voice talking to Wano is called Dorman. They have the power to revive the dead. I say they because Dorman refers to himself in second person. This plan keeps getting better and better. To bring Wano back to life, Dorman asks Wano to destroy the 16 idols in the temple. However, in order to destroy them, Wano has to find the Colossus representing each idol and kill it. In doing so comes a heavy price to pay that Dorman casually forgets to mention. And so, it's up to Wano to slay 16 Colossi so that Mono can be brought back to life. I really like this game's story. It's a unique premise that really hasn't been done since. There's a lot about this story that's open to interpretation as well. Like why Mono died, or why Wano is going through all this trouble to bring her back. The game also has a really cool ending that's open to interpretation. I'm not spoiling the ending here, but my opinions on it are basically the same as everyone else's. But I do have to say that I did not play this game blind. I've known about the ending and themings of this game for years. Shadow of the Colossus is one of those games that's talked about quite a bit. With its unique story and premise, it's pretty easy to see why. But wow, can we just talk about these graphics for a second? Bluepoint did a fantastic job making this game look pretty on PS4. This seriously might be one of the prettiest remakes ever, and if you got a PS4 Pro, you can play it in 60 FPS. I have a standard PS4 though, and honestly, it feels fine at 30 FPS. But if you have a Pro, take advantage of that performance mode. Shadow of the Colossus has a beautifully orchestrated soundtrack as well. Every situation has music that fits, and it just sounds so good. It must have been incredible to be part of this orchestra. Now for the gameplay. You've got to defeat all 16 Colossi and not much else. You find each one by holding up your magical GPS sword to the sky and follow the beam of light. Once you find the Colossus, you have to figure out how to climb it, then stab their giant, obvious weak points. You can't climb all of them all day though, as you do need to keep an eye on your stamina meter. It's like Dark Souls, but with giant Colossi. Okay, who wrote this? Yo, Kevin, you been messing with scripts again? When a Colossi is defeated, you get assaulted by some weird-ass dark energy, and you're teleported back to Dorman's temple. This is completely fine, let's keep doing this. Each boss is essentially part puzzle, part boss fight, which is really cool. Most of the time spent in these fights is figuring out how to get to the weak point. After that, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Stab, stab, stab.
Some of these Colossi never even attack you, and just kinda sit there minding their own business until we start to provoke them. Hell, the ones that do this are considered to be some of the best fights in the game. I respectfully disagree, but I'll get into that later. In between each fight, you run around in this barren overworld to find your next foe. It really gives you time to reflect on your adventure. Is what I'm doing right? Is this really worth it? Is Dorman going to uphold their end of the bargain? What's going to happen to me after this? Did I leave the oven on at home? Oh my god, I totally left the oven on. From a story standpoint, this is pretty cool. The only thing in this land is you and the 16 Colossi. No distractions, let's do the— oh my god, there's a lizard, kill it! Where'd you go, you little son of a bitch? I am the hunter and you are my prey. Wait, I feel like I'm forgetting something. But from a gameplay standpoint, this world feels kind of pointless. There was hardly anything to do in it. There's these lizards that you can find that increase your stamina, and trees bearing fruit that increase your health, but that's about it. There's these weird collectibles scattered around too, but I have no idea what they do. This overworld is one of the most barren overworlds I've ever seen. I guess that you were just supposed to explore it and take in the scenery in between each fight, but it's hard to want to explore when there's nothing to do in it. You can bet your ass that I dropped everything whenever I found a lizard, though. I need my slightly bigger stamina bow, damn it. Sometimes your sword GPS can be misleading, too. It seems like it points you in the direction of the next Colossi, but it doesn't take into account your surroundings. Like one time I followed the light all the way to a dead end, but it turns out it's supposed to go around the canyon to the desert to these old ruins. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it really just kills your desire to explore anything and just makes you want to go back to fighting Colossi. But honestly, my biggest issue with this game is how clunky the controls feel. Despite looking like a PS4 game, this still feels like a PS2 game. The climbing in this game just feels off, like it could be vastly improved. Climbing in this game doesn't feel very satisfying or fun. Just looking at the gameplay, it looks grand and epic climbing these gigantic, majestic beats, but it doesn't feel that way. I'm sorry, but this is just hard to describe. The climbing and even the jump physics don't feel nearly as good as they could. I get that they weren't going for super tight controls and physics, but this game would probably be significantly better if the climbing was improved. I get that this game came out on the PS2, but as someone who had never played it before and having played games like Uncharted and Breath of the Wild with infinitely better climbing systems, it just really messes with my enjoyment of this game. The rest of the controls feel clunky too, like how when riding your horse in order to go full speed, you have to hold down the triangle button. Why? Pressing forward doesn't do anything as far as I can tell, and it doesn't make much sense. It'd be one thing if you didn't want to run at full speed very often, but most of the time, you want to go at full speed. Couldn't the triangle button slow you down instead of speed you up? Or at least have an option for it? Aggro tends to just wander off when lizard hunting too. Aggro, can you just stand still please? You can call back the triangle, but Aggro seems like he has a mind of his own most of the time, which to be fair is pretty minor. The bow feels clunky too. The transition to and from aiming feels slow and disorienting. There's sometimes a delay between releasing R1 when the arrow actually fires, but sometimes it fires immediately, and it's hard to keep track of the cursor sometimes, especially when there's a bunch of green around it. A black outline around the cursor would do wonders. Not to mention how often the camera freaks out. Because of these clunky controls, it really hinders my enjoyment of the boss fights. It's hard to enjoy taking these guys down when the controls feel so rough around the edges. And because I don't really enjoy these fights, it's hard to feel bad about killing them because I didn't really care about it that much to begin with. Personally, most of these fights don't really feel that engaging to me. Like how with Avion, once you get onto it, it has no way of attacking you other than trying to throw you off. It pretty much just amounts to moving to its weak points and damaging it until it's dead. Phalanx is a similar situation. It doesn't have any way of attacking you other than submerging back into the sand, so we just repeat the same process of shooting down his air sacs, climbing up his wings and stabbing his weak points. I know it's more about the spectacle of climbing these huge beasts, but the ones that barely put up a fight are the ones I like the least. Honestly, with most bosses, once you figure out how to get to the weak point, it feels kind of boring to me. There were fights I really liked that were like Dirge. Sure, it's simple, but you have to keep moving in order to stay alive, and it feels like I'm actually fighting something. Another one of my favorites was Hydrus. Not too sure why, but it felt really cool riding along this giant eel and slowly killing it. Or maybe it was just pent up Mario 64 rage, I don't know. I had to mention Kuromori too. It was really fun hitting his belly with arrows that make him mad dash at the bottom of the Coliseum to do damage to it. I have to admit, the few fights I enjoyed, I really enjoyed. I guess my issue isn't really so much the clunky control, it's just not really enjoying the bosses themselves. Even though the controls didn't exactly help. My least favorite bosses have to be the smaller ones that can just combo you in a corner until you die. I think we can all agree they shouldn't be able to do this. I don't know what it is about this game. I really wanted to love Shadow of the Colossus. It does so many things I really like, but actually playing it only gives me mild enjoyment. I did like the game, but I probably won't ever come back to it. This is one of those play once and done kind of games for me. Although I do want people to try it out for themselves. There's a lot to love about this game, and it's one of those games that everyone should play at least once. The PS3 version goes for about $20, and the PS4 version about $40, so it's not even that expensive if you want to give it a shot. Who knows, maybe you'll like it more than I did. Again, I really wanted to love this game. I don't know if it's just not my cup of tea or I had too much of the game spoiled for me over the years or what, but it actually makes me sad I don't like this game more than I do. I like to play games as blind as possible, with a few exceptions, but I guess I can use this as a reminder to keep to that. This has been that Flame Assassin guy, and I really didn't want to end on a sour note for such a beloved game, but I guess that's just how opinions are sometimes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next mission.